What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. Welcome to part 2 of my combat style armor mod breakdown. In today's video, we will be looking at Warmind cells. Now, I know they are a shell of their former self, but their former self was incredibly busted. After doing extensive testing, I still think these have a place in the game and are in a pretty good spot now. For those who may not be familiar with Warmind cells, I will break down how to make them, and then we will get into what each mod does. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First, Warmind cells are little orange balls that can spawn on the ground, and when shot, will do a number of different things which we'll go over shortly. But firstly, how do we make them? Well, the main way to make them is with a 7th Seraph or Ikelos weapon. These weapons include in the kinetic slot, the 7th Seraph Officer Revolver Hand Cannon and the 7th Seraph Carbine Auto Rifle. In the energy slot, the Ikelos SMG, the 7th Seraph CQC Shotgun, the 7th Seraph Sidearm, the 7th Seraph SMG, the Ikelos Hand Cannon, the Ikelos Sniper Rifle, and the Ikelos Shotgun. And in the heavy slot, we have the 7th Seraph Saw Heavy Machine Gun. There are also some other weapons that can spawn Warmind cells, including Witherhorde and Anarchy, as they deal damage over time, and if you have a Warmind cell generating weapon out when the enemy affected dies, it can spawn a cell. And solar weapons such as Xenophage, 1000 Voices, or a solar rocket launcher can as well, with the Warmind cell mod Wrath of Rasputin equipped. Lastly, Outbreak Perfected and Sleeper Simulant cannot make Warmind cells, and this is a tragedy. Seriously, Bungie, give these two Rasputin-esque weapons the power to create cells. I can think of no other weapons in the game that should be able to spawn cells more than these two. Now that we have all that out of the way, we know how to make Warmind cells. Now, let's look at what they do. First, we'll talk about the only general Warmind cell mod, which is Global Reach. This perk states Warmind cells you create affect and damage targets at a greater distance. This mod costs 3 energy, and let me tell you, it is very much worth it. I will show myself destroying a Warmind cell without Global Reach, and then with it, and you can see the difference that it makes. This mod is almost a must when it comes to running a Warmind cell build, and because of this, for the sake of showing real world scenarios and getting better testing, I will be running Global Reach for all the testing in this video. So every clip will be a Warmind cell mod plus Global Reach. It is that good, and there is no reason to run Warmind cells if you are not using this mod. So now that we have that out of the way, let's jump into the solar Warmind cell mods. In my opinion, these are the strongest of the Warmind cell mods, and definitely the ones that I run the most. Let's start with Wrath of Rasputin because I just referenced it a minute ago. What this mod does is it allows solar splash damage final blows to have a chance to create Warmind cells. So this means that any solar splash damage can cause a Warmind cell to spawn. That means things like rocket launchers, explosions from Bottom Tree Dawnblade, Bottom Tree Sunbreaker, Xenophage, and 1000 Voices are all capable of spawning Warmind cells with this mod equipped. Hell, even Warmind cells can cause other Warmind cells to spawn. It is very strong. This mod only costs 1 energy, and it is the only mod that allows things outside of 7th Seraph and Ikelos weapons to spawn Warmind cells. So this is probably the next best Warmind cell mod. Now, before I get ahead of myself, I just want to talk about spawning Warmind cells. It is not random. If you kill a yellow bar with a Warmind cell generating weapon, it will always drop a Warmind cell. And then, if you kill 2 to 3 orange bars, it will also always drop a cell. And finally, 5 to 6 red bar enemies will drop a Warmind cell. Now that we have that established, let's talk about how we can chain Warmind cells. If we equip Rage of the Warmind, this will add additional solar damage to the explosions of Warmind cells that you destroy. So that means our Warmind cells will deal more damage, and it is solar damage. Well, this counts as splash damage, meaning if you take out 6 enemies with a Warmind cell and have Wrath of Rasputin and Rage of the Warmind both on, this will cause another Warmind cell to spawn, allowing us to essentially chain Warmind cells. We call this the Holy Trinity of Warmind cells. This is probably the strongest combination of Warmind cell mods. From there, you can plug and play as you see fit. But if you want to use Warmind cells for ad clear, then I highly recommend these 3 mods. The next best mod is probably Fireteam Medic, which creates a burst of healing for you and your allies when destroying a Warmind cell. This is extremely good and high-end content for survivability. Personally, I love it in solo lost sectors. It's definitely a good mod to run if you are speccing into a Warmind cell build. Then the last one I usually run if I am going all out on Warmind cells is Burning Cells. This creates a burst of solar energy that causes enemies to burn for several seconds. This just adds even more solar damage to our Warmind cells, making them just a little bit better. This combination of 5 mods used to decimate ads, but Bungie did nerf Warmind cells before Season of the Lost. So as a result, all the gameplay you are seeing is post-nerf, so that you can have a representative sample of what they are like now. I just wanted to throw that out there in case anyone was wondering, because I do have lots of old footage of them wrecking in Grandmasters and solo lost sectors, So even though they're not as OP as they once were, they can still serve a purpose even after the nerf. Another solar Warmind cell mod is Incinerating Light, which allows you to become charged with light if you defeat multiple enemies with the explosion of a Warmind cell. This is not a bad mod if you are running a charge with light build as well as Warmind cells. And lastly, for the solar mods, we have Light of the Fire, where rapidly defeating targets with the detonation of a Warmind cell generates an orb of power. This costs 4 energy, and overall, I would say this is just not worth it when you can have so many better Warmind cell mods. As well, I tested this one a lot and I was never able to find the orb that it created. I don't know if it only makes an orb for allies or it's just really hard to find because you're taking out so many enemies, but either way, that makes this rather useless, so steer clear of this one. And that is it for the solar mods. Next, let's take a look at the Void Warmind Cell mods, which I think are the next best mods after the solar ones. We'll start with the mod that gives most utility in my opinion and is the best for endgame content, and that mod is Cellular Suppression. This mod states damaging a Warmind cell creates a burst of suppressing void energy. Additionally, you deal less damage to Warmind cells. So for the damage portion, that means the cells won't blow up as easily, which is actually good as you want it to be around to be able to continually shoot it to suppress enemies. The suppression lasts about 12 seconds long, which can be very good in certain situations, especially in high-end content where red bars can kill you pretty easily. But you can shoot the Warmind cell anytime to reproc the suppression. Just don't damage it too much or it will still explode. These Warmind cells last about 20 seconds, but if you wanted to extend the duration so you can continually suppress the adds, you can run the next mod, which is Warmind's Longevity. This mod allows Warmind cells to last longer. How much longer? 10 extra seconds. This mod does not stack, and I tested it. With one mod or 4, it still lasts 30 seconds. The next mod we'll look at is Warmind's Protection. This mod allows you to take reduced damage from enemies that are near Warmind cells. The enemies affected by this will glow orange. You do not have to be near the Warmind cells for this to work. This just affects the enemies that are near the Warmind cell. Whenever they are glowing orange, they will do less damage to you. I don't know exactly how much less damage, but you can see in the gameplay I'm getting peppered pretty heavily and survive for quite a while. There's another mod that affects enemies when they are near a Warmind cell, and that is Power of Rasputin. This mod gives you a bonus to weapon damage against enemies near a Warmind cell. The damage buff is only 10%, however, this buff actually stacks with other buffs in the game such as Weapons of Light, so for certain boss encounters, this mod can actually be really good. In the background gameplay, you may have noticed I was picking up the Warmind cell and throwing it onto the Lost Sector boss. Well, that is done with the Warmind cell Grasp of the Warmind. You can pick up, carry, and throw Warmind cells. Once thrown, a Warmind cell cannot be picked up again. This is a very good mod to use like how I used it against the Lost Sector boss to apply Power of Rasputin, but another good utility this mod offers is it actually resets the Warmind cell timer. As you can see in the background gameplay, the Warmind cell is about to expire, but I run and pick it up, and when I throw it, it resets and lasts for another 20 seconds. This will also stack with Warmind's Longevity, meaning if you time it right, you can make a Warmind cell last for almost 1 minute. Pretty cool. As you have probably noticed, all of the Void Warmind Cell mods are geared to affect enemies near the Warmind Cell. That brings us to our last Void Warmind Cell mod, which is Light from Darkness. This mod states you become charged with light by rapidly defeating multiple enemies near a Warmind Cell using weapons or abilities. In my testing, this takes about 3 kills total, as long as it is in rapid succession. Not too bad if you are running a charge with light build and a Warmind Cell build. But as we know, there are only so many armor slots available for mods, so this type of build is pretty rare. Of all the Void mods, this is probably the worst one. And that is it for the Void Warmind Cell mods. As I said, these have good utility in certain situations, but you have to know where and how to use them. Now, let's take a look at the last set of Warmind Cell mods, which are the Arc mods. These mods are based around picking up Warmind cells. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to shoot my Warmind cells from afar and let them do work. This set of mods is the opposite of that. With these, you want to run straight to the Warmind cells. So let's look at the first one, which will be Warmind's Light. This is super simple. You become charged with light by collecting a Warmind cell. Not much to it. Acts like any other mod that allows you to become charged with light. From the most simple mod, we go to the most nuanced mod, which is Sheltering Energy. Collecting a Warmind cell grants you an overshield. This one is interesting because there are a few things going on here. This mod does not give you an instant overshield like many other things in the game do. This overshield regenerates much like your health, so if you take damage, it will stop the regeneration. It gives you a shielded timer which lasts for 20 seconds, so if you take damage, your overshield will deplete, but if you can get to safety, it will regenerate. It does this until your shielded buff goes away. However, if you lose your overshield completely, then the buff expires. Not totally sure why it does this, but that is how this mod works. So because it is a regenerating shield, I would say this mod is not very good. If you take any damage, the regeneration stops. If it gave a full overshield off the bat, then I may be more likely to recommend it. But chances are you have to run into enemies just to collect the cell, so you'll probably be taking damage, hence you will not get the overshield until you are back in cover. I'm not really a huge fan. The next mod is Strength of Rasputin, and this grants you melee energy for collecting a Warmind cell. It only gives you half of a full melee charge. Again, not that impressive. Solar Warmind cells can clear a whole room of enemies with the right setup and chain Warmind cells while doing so, and this mod gives you half of your melee energy back. I think I'll pass. And speaking of useless Warmind cell mods, let's look at Chosen of the Warmind. This mod creates a concussive blast that pushes enemies away when you collect a Warmind cell. In my experience, it either does nothing or sends enemies straight up into the air. It barely damages enemies to boot. This mod is completely useless in my opinion. Never run this mod. I honestly can't think of one scenario where this mod would be good. Next, we have another terrible mod in Blessing of Rasputin. Collecting a Warmind cell increases the chance that your next final blow with a Seraph weapon will create a Warmind cell. In my testing, it made it so I normally needed 5 red bar kills to proc a cell, to only needing 4 red bar kills to proc a cell. I tested this pretty extensively, so maybe I just have really bad luck, or maybe this mod is just really awful. Also, the perk states a Seraph weapon, and I was originally using an Ikelos SMG, so I threw on the 7th Seraph Officer Revolver just to be sure, and it acted the exact same way. 4 kills instead of 5. Steer clear of this one. And that brings us to our final Warmind cell mod, Modular Lightning. I've been pretty harsh on the Arc Warmind cell mods, so let's finish on a positive note. This mod creates a burst of chaining arc energy around you. Think like a Dune Marcher's chain, as I noticed they seem to chain very similarly to those. And it actually does a decent amount of damage. It can actually kill red bars, unlike Chosen of the Warmind. I still can't think of a situation I would use this mod in over a Solar or Void Warmind cell mod, but at least its effect isn't total trash. And that is going to do it for the video. I hope this breakdown of each Warmind cell mod helped you learn something, and if it did, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And tune in tomorrow when I break down every single Elemental Well mod. If you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and take care.